So I'm Jason Dobry. I work at Google, developer relations. Within developer relations, I work in the engineering part. So I spend most of my time coding, demos, code samples, infrastructure, apps, whatever we think we need to build in order to make the developer experience better. I specifically work in Google Cloud Platform, and I have done a lot of work on cloud functions. But today I'm going to talk about Firebase, mixing them with cloud functions and some ML stuff. Who has heard of Firebase? Raise your hand. I'm trying to find someone who didn't raise their hand.
Who did not raise their hand? Raise your hand.
Well, okay. Who has used Firebase? Raise your hand. Okay, still a good number of people. Who has used cloud functions? Okay, about 10 or so. Okay, so this is going to be hopefully some new stuff for a bunch of you, cool stuff. So before I get started, quick summary of Firebase. Firebase is Google's platform for mobile and web development. That's what Firebase is. It's a suite of probably 15 to 20 products that make it easy for you to develop mobile and web apps. The original product that I think Firebase is most well known for is its real-time database. It's a document-styled, NoSQL database that uses WebSockets to connect to clients. And when changes happen in the database, changes can be pushed out to the clients. And if, you can subscribe to those in a functional way and have sort of a automatic updates to your view that can happen, and create this sort of three-way binding effect. Have any of you used Angular Fire? Raise your hand. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about here. With just a couple lines of code, you could have your changes to your database being synced all the way to the DOM in your browser, and it's super, super easy. Firebase also has hosting. They can host your website, your static assets. There's object storage for images and such. There is Cloud Functions as sort of a serverless compute execution environment for when you need to do things that can't be done on the client. Maybe you need to resize an image. Maybe you need to send a transactional email, and you don't want to deal with DevOps or deploying VMs or anything like that. You can just write some Node.js code, and we'll run it for you. In today's workshop, we're going to take an Angular Firebase application, which is a chat app, and we're going to add we're going to extend its capabilities using Cloud Functions. There are some things we would like to do with this app that we can't necessarily do in the browser. We want to talk to the Google Cloud Vision API, because users can upload images when they make these chat messages. And we want to look at these images and make sure that they're something we want to show in the app. And so we're going to send them through the Vision API to get some analysis on those and see if any of them are have adult content or maybe violent, and we want to blur them. How do you blur an image in the browser? I have no idea. But in Cloud Functions, the image magic binary is available in the Cloud Functions environment. So if we can hook into when images are uploaded, we can send them to the Vision API, and we could blur them if necessary, and then resave them back to storage. And that's just one of the things we're going to do. So there's a link here. I have a short link you can go to. The longer version is, where's the longer version? codelabs.developers.google.com/codelabs/firebase-cloud-functions-angular. Here's the short one again. bit.ly/ngfirebase18. Open it in your laptop, and you can follow along with every step that I'm going to do during this workshop. You're going to want to have Node installed, npm, and Git. I think those are called out in the prereqs for the workshop. So here's the workshop. Let me zoom in a little. Is that mostly readable? Hopefully you all have it open on your laptops anyway. So the friendly chat web app, there are a number of versions of this. There are some non-Angular versions you can look at that just use vanilla JavaScript. I can't remember if there are other versions that use React or anything. We have an Angular version here that is the one we're going to hook into. So to get started, you need those prereqs: terminal, IDE, browser, Node, and npm, and Git. So I'm going to just dive right in. So get the sample code. It's a Git clone. I already cloned it. So here I am in my shell. And this is what's inside the repository. There are two folders that we're interested in here, Cloud Functions Angular and Cloud Functions Angular Start. I'm going to use the Start directory, and I'm going to build onto it as I go. If you would like, you can just go to the Cloud Functions Angular directory. That's the finished app that has all the Cloud Functions code, so you can see how it's going to look when you're done. So I'm going to open it up in my editor, and here it is. Cloud Functions Angular Start. There's a source directory, contains the Angular code. There's a functions directory, that's where we're going to go edit. And it's got a whole bunch of other config files, the proliferation of config files, all of the config files. So let's start doing something. So you're going to need a Firebase project. If you don't have a Firebase project, go to console.firebase.google.com, and you can click Create New Project and get one created. I pre-created a project. So here's my project, Cloud Functions Angular. I stole that ID, so you can't use it. And it looks like in our code lab instructions, it wants us to, step 1, import our Firebase config into our app. So after you create your Firebase project, there's a button you can click here on the home page that says Add Firebase to your web app. And it gives you some config values, API key, project ID. The app is going to use these config values so it knows which database to talk to and stuff like that. So I'm going to grab these. And according to our instructions, I need to go put them in the environment.prod.ts file. So that way Angular can stick these into our app for us, and we don't have to do much work. So I'm just going to paste these here so that they're going to be available to my app. It also wants me to grab specifically the messaging sender ID, because we're going to need that later for some of the Cloud Function stuff we're going to do. And it wants me to put it in the Firebase messaging SW file. This is a service worker. Oh, it's already in there. And apparently, I committed that to source control. So you're going to want to change it to your own message. You're going to want to change that to your own messaging sender ID. Otherwise, it won't work. Or maybe I will just get all of your notifications. I don't know. Make a note of that so I can fix it later. OK, enable Google Auth. So Firebase, one of the things it ships with is an authentication toolkit. It makes it really simple to add Facebook, or maybe not Facebook these days, Google, Twitter, GitHub, Google Play Services. There's also username password authentication you can add. And it makes it really easy to add these to your app so your users can sign in. And we're going to add Google Sign In. By the way, if any of you run into like a problem and you get stuck, I have a couple TAs here who can help. I've got Brett. I've got Ping, possibly. I don't know if you're willing to help.
And then Jeff.
And Jeff in the back. Raise your hand, Jeff. Cool. So enabling Google Auth. To do that, I'm going to go back to the console where my project is. I'm going to click on Authentication in the left nav. I'm going to go to Sign-in Methods. Here are the options. I'm going to click on Google, Enable, Save. I just enabled Google Sign-in for my app. Next step. Make sure I've got the Angular CLI. OK. I'm going to run this command. npm-g install Angular CLI. I have good internet connection, hopefully. This is one of those context switching moments when you run an npm install command. Time to go talk to somebody, browse your feed. It worked. So ng version. Great, I think I have the latest version. Make sure you have 1.0 or newer. And then run an npm install in the root of the Cloud Functions Angular Start directory, and that's going to install the development dependencies we need in order to build our app. Wow, that was fast. I must have already done it. Oh, I'm in the wrong folder. There we go. So while that's running, I'm going to peek at the next instructions. Make sure you have Firebase tools. So Firebase ships a command line interface that you can use to interact with Firebase. That's just an npm install command away. That finished. So I'm going to make sure I have this. With the Firebase CLI, you can inspect your applications, deploy them. There are some local serving you can do during development, things like that. Run this command when it's done. Whoops. says it took 122 seconds. I don't think it took that long. Okay, I've got version 3.18. I think you need to have at least 3.5. Firebase login. I'm already logged in. Firebase use. So this is, I'm telling you which project to use. I think I have a bunch of projects, so I want to grab one. This one. You can give it some alias. I don't think it really matters what the alias is. Just give it something. And I think I'm off to the races. Build, deploy, and run the web app. ng-build. We've got the prod flag in. That means when we deploy it, it's going to pull those prod environment variables that we did in the earlier step. So it knows which database to talk to. And we added ahead of time compilation for the fun of it. All right, I'm going to deploy my app. So right now I'm going to show you right here, my app is not deployed. Cloud functions angular.firebaseapp.com, site not found. But after I run this deploy command, which is Firebase deploy except functions. So we're deploying everything except our functions because we haven't written them yet. So this is going to deploy my static assets to the website, to my Firebase app, the Angular app that I just built. And it's done. So I should be able to come over here, refresh the page, and I have an app. So I personally use Firebase for all of my side projects. It has a really generous free tier. The hosting is just so convenient. You just start throwing together an Angular app with your index.html file, Firebase deploy, boom, it's hosted somewhere. You don't have to fiddle with a server on a VM anywhere. Just let Firebase host it for you. Okay, so we deployed our app. It doesn't have any messages yet. So it looks like I need to sign in. So we already enabled Google sign-in, so I should just be able to click here. And I'm signed in. It's got my face. First, I am the first. Sweet. If any of you would like to visit my application and share a message with the group, feel free. It's cloud-functions-angular.firebaseapp.com. Now, not everybody at once, because we're going to add a feature here that I'll need a new user to sign in order to demonstrate the feature. So some of you hold off. Let's see what the next step is. We're going to write our first function. So I'm going to head into the functions directory. Looks like there is a functions directory. And inside that directory, we just have two files so far. An index.js file, which I think is empty, and a package.json file. Cloud Functions is currently Node.js only, which isn't too bad since we're already writing JavaScript for our front end. So we can just do some Node. So it looks like in this file, just a bunch of to-do comments. This is where we're going to fill in our functions. First thing it wants me to do is run npm install, of course. What are we installing? It looks like the package.json file has two dependencies in it. So there's a Firebase admin package. That's going to let us talk to the Firebase database. The Firebase functions package is going to let us actually define our functions. And we need that because functions can be triggered in different ways. We have foreground functions, which are triggered by direct HTTP requests that come from you or a webhook service. Those are super convenient for implementing webhooks. A great example would be you've got a bunch of GitHub repositories in your organization, and it's a pain assigning reviewers to all of your PRs. What you could do is you could write a function that is one of those HTTP type functions, and you could go to your GitHub config, and you could add the function's HTTP or URL to the webhook field, and have GitHub send your function event data whenever a new PR is opened on one of your repos, and then in your Cloud Function, you could have some code that like automatically assigns someone on your team as a reviewer. And that's just a simple example of one that I personally have done before of using a function to respond to webhook requests. The other type of function is a background function. background functions are invoked indirectly via or in response to various cloud events. Right now, functions supports, and I'm just going to pull up the docs real quick. So firebase.google.com/docs, guides, functions, right here, triggering functions. So in our background functions, we've got Firestore triggers, database triggers, authentication triggers. For example, when a new user signs in for the first time, you would like a function to be invoked so you can send them a welcome email or something. Analytics triggers, crash storage triggers. Let's say a user uploads a new profile image and you want to turn it into a thumbnail. You can have a function invoked whenever they do that, turn it into a thumbnail. Pub/sub triggers. Today we're going to use the auth, storage, and database triggers. So let's go back, see if my npm install finished. It did, 20 seconds. Okay, let's write our first function. So our first function needs these imports, so I'm going to copy this and paste them into the file, which I closed apparently. Put it right here at the top. So now we've got our admin and the functions SDKs. Next up, we want to welcome new users. Okay, so when someone signs into our app for the first time, we want to do something. And it looks like in this case, we want to add a welcome message. It's a chat room, so we'll just have our bot say welcome. So I'm going to grab this code, and I'm going to paste it in there. All right, under this to-do. And then we deploy. So this time, instead of deploying everything except functions, we are just going to deploy only functions. So that's Firebase deploy -- only functions. And in my console, I can verify that I don't have any functions deployed yet. There aren't any functions. So shortly, there should be at least one, the add welcome messages function. We can do, while it's deploying, we can do a little code review, I guess, and see what it does. So we are calling out to that functions library. We say .auth.user on create. So when a new user is created, that means someone signs in for the first time and a record is created for them on the Firebase side. It gives us the user object. Looks like we have their display name. We are going to push a new message to the database. So we use the admin SDK, because we're now talking to the Firebase API. We use the admin SDK, access the database reference. Within the database, we're going to go into the messages path, and we're going to add a new message. The name, Firebase bot. We're going to use a photo URL, which looks like it's probably just some blank avatar. We're going to use the user's display name that came from their profile. So if they're logging in with Google, it's going to be the name they have configured in their Google account. And the chat message is going to say welcome. So it's done deploying. I can look at my console. I'm going to refresh my functions console. And there it is, my add welcome messages function. It has not executed yet. Oh, it's executed 3 times. Maybe 3 people have logged in while I've been talking. Let's go look. Okay, I see some messages, some fire. It's on fire. Okay, I need someone to log in for the first time who has not logged into this app. cloud-functions-angular.firebaseapp.com. Still waiting. Waiting. Oh, Brett, thank you for signing in. Everybody clap for Brett. He was the first one. And now there's an avalanche of people signing in. Thank you. I think we've demonstrated that it works. Stop signing in. Okay. Well, that was cool. Yeah, some other things you might want to do when someone signs in for the first time. Prepare more data in your database. Send them a welcome email. Some things that you typically might be doing on the server. Therefore, can't be done in the browser. The cloud function here is just an excellent place to do this. You can write your functions in a really modular way where they can just be kind of used where they're needed. It's just the unit of compute is the function. And on the Firebase side, it will be scaled and executed as needed. You don't have to worry about scale. Let's see what's next up on the menu here. Image moderation. Okay, so this is a bit more of an advanced function. We're going to do a little more work. If I look at the friendly chat app, whoa, things are getting scary. In addition to sending text messages in the chat room, it looks like there's a way to upload images. Okay, that's cool. So we got images. But we want to maybe moderate those images. So the process here is going to be, when an image is uploaded, check if the image is flagged as adult or violent using the Google Cloud Vision API. If it is flagged, then we need to download that image to the running function. We need to blur it using the image magic binary that's in the environment. And then we need to upload the blurred image back up to Firebase storage. So that's like our algorithm here, our steps. So to do that, in your project, you need to enable the Cloud Vision API. There's a link here in the code lab that you can follow that's going to enable it for you. So I'm going to click that to show you what it looks like. I already went and enabled it, so I should be good. Angular. You pick your project there, and if it's not enabled, there will be a big blue enable button. You can enable the Cloud Vision API. I've enabled it. But before I can use it, I need to install the client library for the Vision API. So I've got this npm install command here I can run. And that's going to grab for me both the client library for the Vision API and the storage API, as well as a little helper library for wrapping, because we're going to have to shell out to the image magic binary. So we're going to use exec, and we want to use promises, I guess. It's more convenient. That was fast, 5 seconds. All right, so let's import them. I'm going to copy this, put it into my function. Up near the top. So here I'm importing those libraries, and I'm instantiating some clients here. OK, so this is our function. It's called blur offensive images, and we're going to reference that functions library again. This time we're going into the storage area. We're going to storage.object. It's an object storage product, and so I guess object is the thing that's uploaded. It's an object. I mean, it could be an image, or it could be like an audio file. It could be any object, really, any binary. So .object.onFinalize. You can go to the storage docs, and it has more details regarding the storage triggers. There are actually 4 different kinds. There are triggers for when a file is created, deleted, the metadata is changed, or it's updated. In this case, we're just going to use the onFinalize trigger, which is pretty much any time the data is like created, updated, and I think deleted. So here's our code. I'm going to grab it real quick. Put it over here. I already did that. OK, so what this does, we can read through it real quick. If it was a deletion event, we'll just skip it. If it was a deploy event, which I think comes from hosting, the hosting is stored in storage as well, static files. OK, when it comes in, it gives us the object that was uploaded. It has some metadata about the object, like the name of it and a bunch of other things. When that comes in, we're going to first check to see if we've already moderated that image. So what we do is we say if it's already been moderated, then we're going to just quit. Otherwise, we're going to call the Vision API, and we're going to do safe search detection. And we're going to give it what's called the GCS URI of the image object as it's stored in the bucket. And when it comes back, we're going to say if it's flagged with adult or violent content, then we're going to moderate that. We're going to delegate to a blur image function, which we haven't implemented yet. But it's here in the code lab. So we'll grab that, paste it into our file, and then we'll redeploy. So while that's deploying, we'll look at the code. So this blur image function takes that object that we received in our event trigger, set up a few variables, calculate a local file name where we can store the file. First thing we're going to do is we're going to download the file to our function. Then we're going to shell out to the image magic binary. And in this case, we're adding blur. We're just blurring the image. and it overwrites the file in memory or on disk. Then we're going to take the overwritten file on disk and upload it right back to the bucket in the same location that it was. So the original file, the original image is lost in our particular example. And then we go to that message associated with the image, and we add a moderated flag. So the next time something happens with, so when the blurred image is uploaded, that's going to trigger the storage function again. We don't want it to just go into an infinite loop of moderation. So we'll set that flag so that it will recognize that it's been moderated already, and it will just exit. And we finished deploying. So now we're going to test the image moderation feature and upload a image that needs to be moderated. Apparently Palpatine is, well, I guess we hadn't deployed it yet. You could try re-uploading the Palpatine image and see if it blurs it. Brett's got one coming. So I'm going to come over here and upload one that I got. It's referenced in the code lab, but it's a zombie chowing down on a poor person. So I'm going to go to my, so there's the image. I'm going to go to the logs for my functions. And we'll see what's happening over here. A bunch of add welcome message stuff has been executed. OK, the blur offensive images function has been invoked. And my zombie image was detected as inappropriate. So more logs are coming in still. Looks like it's been downloaded. There are some console.logs sprinkled into that code, so that's why these logs are pretty useful. Image has been blurred. Blurred image has been uploaded. Sweet. Let's go check it out. Oh, it's blurred. It works. Image moderation. Thank you, Vision API. Hello, ng-conf. That's a pretty tame image. Don't go crazy on testing this feature. We'll just leave it at that. It worked on the zombie image. OK. All right, image moderation. So before we move on, the Vision API is Google exposing to you and giving you the opportunity to use our pre-trained Vision APIs to, you can do safe search detection like we just did. It has a number of other features like label detection. It'll tell you what's in the image and cross-reference that with our knowledge graph, over 1 billion entities. There's OCR, text detection. It'll find the text in the image and give you bounding boxes on where it is. You can do label detection, or I just said you can do logo detection, so like company logos. It'll find those for you. Facial detection, it'll give you all the polygons of where points in the face are located. If you actually go to cloud.google.com/vision, there's a demo you can run. I uploaded my mugshot to the demo. About 1.5 years ago when I did it, one of the labels that came back was senior citizen. So I just thought I'd try it again today, and this is a planned joke, obviously. I mean, but it was true. It was senior citizen there, but it's gone. Thankfully, I'm no longer a senior citizen, and but I am an entrepreneur. I have a jaw. It's got my jaw. I must have a strong jaw. I'm a gentleman. Eyebrow. I must have eyebrows.
Just one.
Just one. And some other things. Let's see. Faces. There's the stuff it detected in my face. Image properties. These are like dominant colors. Safe search is very unlikely to contain any violent content. Where was, I think that's it, yeah. So that's an example of some of the stuff the Vision API can do. Back to our tutorial. OK, so we moderated the image. What's next? New message notifications. So this will use Firebase Cloud Messaging, hook it in with the Chrome notification system. When you signed in, did Chrome ask you to allow notifications? Yeah, did you? No. So it's not going to work for you. But you can fix that by just clicking right here and saying allow. OK, so let's just do this. This time we're listening to a database change. OK, so that means whenever a new message is uploaded, that means some changes are happening in our database because we're storing the message in the database. And we want this function to be invoked whenever a new message is written. And in this function, we are going to create this notification object, and we're going to use the admin SDK of Firebase to send a notification to the two devices that are like it's off screen. I'm actually not totally familiar with what the criteria is for Chrome to pop that notification up for you. Do you have to be like in a different app or just a different tab of Chrome? I'm not sure, but we'll figure it out. So I'm going to grab this code. It might not actually work for me because I'll just have the app open. But for some of you it might work. Okay, so new notifications. Paste this, rerun my deploy somewhere where, there it is. So the cool thing about this service worker code that we had open, yeah, so this runs in a service worker so it can stay in the background when the tab is not in focus. The other thing Firebase does here is that we can go look at the database right now. It will automatically collect the token of the device and hook it into the messaging system. So we can see here that here are all the messages that you all have been putting into the app. But over here are the tokens of the devices of people who have actually visited my app. So like 15 or so of you. Almost done. Still almost done. OK, here we are. So I think I need to just like switch over to this for a minute maybe, and then someone posts to my app. Someone sends some messages to my app. It ought to come in here and pop up a little notification. Check the logs, make sure it's being invoked. Logs. OK, send notification. Cannot read property auth domain of undefined. Oh, I think I know what the problem is. Maybe I don't. Auth domain of undefined. Auth domain. So maybe the API for this right here changed, and I was unaware. So we'll have to fix that one later. Thank you for trying, though. We have a bunch of lovely messages that have been added. I think I just have an error in my code right here. So if it had worked, I should have gotten a bunch of notifications just using the Chrome notification thing. They would have popped up. That's a good point. Let's try it. Because I don't necessarily need that click action. It comes with an X, right, in the corner anyway. You cannot dismiss the notification. I'm sure it's just something has changed in this right here that I just need to go fix the breaking change. And update functions usually are quicker than the initial creation of the function. OK. Success. OK, now I'm going to stay out of Chrome for a minute and let some people send some messages to my chat room. Maybe I'll check back here real quick, make sure the error is gone. OK. Any more logs coming in? OK. Finished. Started. Connection error. OK, I'm out of Chrome. I don't know.
You have notifications enabled on the Mac itself in the sidebar.
Right here.
So
Pretty sure.
Actually on the OS, so I've actually turned them off when I'm presenting.
Mm.
It actually squashed those. So up in the corner. Yeah, so.
Oh, is that what that is? Do not disturb.
Yeah, so turn that off. All right, now
Oh, yeah, there is one. Woohoo! Nate posted a message. Error with Robinson. Okay. Well, then it worked. I didn't realize I had that muted. Cool. Well, I'm looking at the app now, so they're not going to show up.
You got to go out. I got to see it.
Okay. Ta-da! It worked. But we disabled the click action. Oh, it just took me to the app. Okay. What was the click action? It was supposed to be just a link. It seems to have worked with that whole line comment. Maybe that's the default anyway, and we don't need this line. Okay. All right, I'm going to go mute those notifications again. Oh, it's over here. Right here. Okay. Whew. Okay, next up, we got another function. This time, we're going to do some annotation of the messages. This time, we're going to use our natural language API. The process on this one is going to be whenever a new message is written, we want to invoke a function, send the content of the message to the Cloud Natural Language API. We would like to get back the sentiment and the entities that are detected in that text. And then based on the sentiment, we're going to change the font of the text. So I think for positive sentiment, the text might get like a little happier looking. This might be totally subjective. I don't know what happier font might be. And then if it's bad or like lower sentiment and then like some angry looking text, I don't know. So same process here. There's a link here to enable the Cloud Natural Language API. You might need to enable billing to use this API, which I think is why the step is marked as optional. I'm not for sure whether the Natural Language API has a free tier. It does have a free tier. You just have to have billing enabled anyway. OK, but there is a free tier. Yeah, both Vision and Natural Language API have a free tier. For Vision, it's like 1,000 requests per month for free or something, and probably more for the Natural Language API. It's not as much work. I've already enabled it, so I'm going to go ahead and start following these instructions. But maybe before I dive into natural language, I'm going to pull up the demo for natural language. If you go to cloud.google.com/natural-language, you're going to be able to try the demo here. There's a sentence here. Google, headquartered in Mountain View, unveiled the new Android phone at the Consumer Electronics Show. Sundar Pichai said in his keynote that users love their new Android phone. OK, so entities. It detected Google, phone, consumer, Android users. It also links you to the Wikipedia article of the thing it detected. Sentiment. You get document level sentiment, and then you get sentiment for each of the entities that it detected. So it looks like our document sentiment overall was 0.3. So it was somewhat negative, apparently. And then so it gave us 2 sentences. Then it also shows you the syntax, which is kind of this cool looking, this thing, as well as categories of things that were found. So that's Natural Language API. Let's go use it. So I'm going to pull in the client library. Oh my God, I got to install the client library first. .6 seconds. Whoops, this needs to be pasted in the file. So up at the top, I'm going to add some more imports. So we've got language. Oops. And then here's our function. Once again, we are subscribing to a database change. And in this case, it's whenever a new message is added to the messages path in our database. So while that's deploying, we'll go look at the code. OK, it's deploying. So in the code, when a new message is added, let's make sure we don't care about edited messages. We only care about new messages. So if it was an edit, we'll just exit. But if it's a new message, then we're going to prepare a request to send to the Natural Language API. We've got the text of the message that we pulled out of the context that came to our function. And then we're going to specify the features that we want to extract. So we want document level sentiment, and we want the entities. And we send it to the natural language client. We get back a result. And we're actually going to just take the result that came back from the natural language API, and we're just going to write it right to our database. Now, because it's the real-time database, when we make those writes to the database, on the Angular side, over in our app, if I open up the app real quick, and I open the HTML, and we find the sentiment. So this right here, message.sentiment, it will be undefined by default for new messages. And then after some latency, because these are asynchronous operations, the function is invoked indirectly by the event of the message being created. The natural language API request is asynchronous. Writing the sentiment result back to the database is also asynchronous. Eventually, the sentiment value, it will receive a value. And Firebase handles pushing those changes out to the client. So on the Angular side, this will just magically re-render the DOM with the new value. It pipes it through a stylize pipe that is here in the app you can go check out. It basically switches on the sentiment and it adds a different font family. It's done deploying, and so it should already be working. Table flips. I'm going to write something really happy. Happy, happy, fun, fun. Let's go check. Oh, my font changed to something flowery. The color blue is rubbish. I think that is a negative font. I don't know. How do you decide if a font is a happy font or a sad font? I'm pretty sure, let's go check out the stylized pipe. So if it's greater than 0.9, you're going to get bonbon. I challenge anyone to get a sentiment of greater than 0.9 in a sentence. I think I got the crafty girls with my happy, happy, fun, fun. I think that was the flowery font. If you get less than negative 0.9, you're going to get creepster, which I think is like goosebumps, or looks like it's oozing. And I think this must be Julie. This one right here. The color blue is rubbish. Sad, 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 sad. We can look at the function invocations. You can see annotate message is being called a few times. Saving annotation. Love, 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 love. For this one, we got a lot of people signing in for the first time. I got to try this. Gee golly, this is amazing. Okay, what if we do terrible, so bad, error, broken? I still don't think I got past the negative 0.9. So at the very bottom, you can see this recent topics. This is enabled by virtue of the fact that when we made the request to the natural language API, we got back the entities. And so in the app, I just take the entities that recently came back and we just stick them into this array and display them here. So recent topics include love, error, news, creep, Donald Trump, Charles Baker, David Wilt. I think those are the names of people who recently signed in. I'm not sure. Did the messages actually contain the name?
Donald Trump is here?
Shrubbery. I hate shrubbery. Well, there you go. So we got Vision API, Natural Language API. Those are just two APIs that I wanted to demonstrate with this app. We also have the Video Intelligence API, which I think is one of a kind. I'm not sure if there are any other alternatives to the Video Intelligence API. It does stuff similar to the Vision API, except on videos. So you can give it a video. It'll tell you everything that's in the video, at what time in the video. It'll tell you when the scene changed, camera angle moved. Video Intelligence API is pretty cool. We also have the Speech API. You can transcribe audio to text. If you want some more examples of some Cloud Functions things, you could go to cloud.google.com/community/tutorials. I'm going to paste this here so it's really big. cloud.google.com/community/tutorials. And this has a few more examples of Cloud Functions. So I can come in here and I can search for Cloud Functions There's one that you can use to auto-deploy stuff using. Okay, so here are some Twilio ones. These ones use the speech API. So if you're doing any telephony, or if you have any audio recorded audio of people speaking, you can use the speech API to get the transcription. You can use the natural language API to get the sentiment of that transcription. You can use our translation API to do translation, obviously. So you can do really cool things with this. Like if you have a team of support reps and you want to figure out which things they talk about change the sentiment of the customer on the other end of the line. Like, does the sentiment of what they're saying change based on what? Anyway, there are cool things you can do here. Video intelligence, vision, natural language, speech, translation, and our recently announced text-to-speech API. That one's pretty cool. It uses the WaveNet to generate speech. And recently we have announced a new model that you can use to add locality to the speech. So you could say, someone with a German accent, get them to say something in English. And then it sounds like someone's saying something in English with a German accent. It's pretty cool. So you can go explore that here as well. So I think that's the end of the tutorial. That was the last step. Congrats. Cool. How many of you got your own deployed? Cool. So everybody know where the Firebase booth is? Over there, right in front of the grand ballrooms. So we'll be there. We can answer questions, talk about use cases, what are some other things you can do with Firebase. If you ran into issues getting it deployed, we can help you debug that, whatever you want. So yeah, I think we're done. Thank you.